Now, there's a solid weight retainer for the governor weights that you should put in these kits. It's a recommended part to change. It's a 29111 Stanadyne part. Here it is here, okay? And the old one had a flexible piece of like rubber on the bottom here that allowed a little bit of flex between the plate that's driven by the pump shaft here and the weights. Just a little bit of give, I guess, when it kicked in and stuff. Anyway, this is a solid one. Apparently it works the same. But I'm noticing something here on the one that I've got. Okay, so I guess look at the end of the shaft here. You see there's a mark on the right here. And in this old weight retainer, there's a mark on the right. So it would go like that, so they line up. Because this can go the other way as well. See, it can go the other way. So this has got to be this way to be lined up correctly. The new one has these marks. Has a little mark there. It's sort of a divot in the metal. See right there? It's cut out. Okay, there's the old one lined up. See how it's straight up and down this way? And here's the new one lined up, but it's opposites. It should work. I mean, it's centrifugal, right? So it spins. So it should be fine. But it's just a curiosity. Not sure if it matters or not, or I believe it's the right part. Okay, so how I'm going to mark it, what you have to do is there's a mark on the edge of this that lines up in the timing window. And on this one here, it's very faint, but it's right here at my thumbnail. If you can see that there or not. That little mark, okay. So the new one comes with no mark. So what you've got to do is you've got to transcribe the mark from this one onto that one. And, you know, some people might say, well, just put them back to back and mark it across like that. But that's going to be opposite, right? Because they don't sit like that. They sit upright. Okay, so I figured out how to do it. I took the old one apart. So that's the part with the mark on it. The part with the mark on it goes down there, okay? And this was the piece, that was the flex ring that holds it together. That's what sits between the weight cage and the bottom plate. So I took that bottom plate off, put it on the marks, and then put this one on the marks. It just has enough room to sit on top there. And there's still a little bit of light aligning that has to be done. But with that aligned, I've got my marks right now. Bring that over. If I line up both of the flanges perfectly, then I've got my, I'll show you here. And then my scratch I put on there lines up with the old mark. It's just this side of it. I'm going to probably put a little heavier line in there with a file, but it's just this side of that scratch I put in there. Okay, so I'm about to put the delivery valve down inside the rotor. Okay, that's the rotor. I don't know if you can see it down in there, but where these pump pistons, where they go, that's how the fuel gets to them. It gets brought down from the metering valve into one of these ports in the rotor. It's brought down, there's a hole through the center of this thing, and it comes out in that delivery, in the pumping chamber. There's a pumping chamber that delivers the high pressure fuel to the injectors. I don't know if you can just see it in there in that little, you might see the delivery hole there. Now there's the delivery valve, there's a spring, and there's what they call the stop, and then there's the plug that holds it all in there, okay? And that's a 5/32 Allen wrench that you take that plug out with. It's an Allen head in there. And it goes in that order, like that, in the rotor, okay? And so that the smallest part of this delivery valve goes towards the spring. Okay, you see that? And what I did was I bought a new delivery valve and a new stop. Now I read in the manual where they say if you're going to change this out, you should always change the stop. For some reason, they say it can cause problems. I guess this wears in some way. It's a Roosa Master. It's a DBGF CC 431-32AJ. So the part number for the delivery valve is 13827. And the part number for the stop is 16440. Okay, so I'm just making sure that my parts are lubed with clean diesel fuel as I put it together. Okay, so here's that delivery valve. I put it down in there. And it's sitting in there with the little nipple sticking up. Good. So there's the old one. And I'm going to reuse the spring. So the spring goes down in there. And the stop. Now I've got to take the stop out of the bag and put the new one in. All right, so I just set the stop in there. There's the old one. I'll just set that aside. And here's that plug. Okay, so I dipped the rotor and the body in clean diesel fuel. Put them together. Okay, that's got to be spotless. And now what I've done is I've put the pump side up. I'm going to put these retainers in, and then there's a clip. See, it's split at the top like that. See that? And dip that in some diesel. Dip these in some diesel. And I'm going to set these down in here. I think those probably have to be in there before the rotor comes all the way to the top. Okay, that's easy enough. Put that there. Put that there. And then, all right, and we need a small tool here. All right. Bring that one over. Bring the other one over, and then we're going to put that little retainer out around them. That's what holds them in. Okay, you see the two halves there? Okay. Now this little ring, I dip that in some clean diesel. Oh, let me see here. On that side. Okay, I got that little ring around there. I just held one side down and then kind of walked it around with the other screwdriver till I got it in place. So, you know, that'll hold the rotor captive in the body now before I work on this end. Because once I work on here, I don't want this thing to come flying out of here, right? Okay, so I got the rotor inside the head. I put those clips on. All right, now let's look at these holes. See, there's two side by side there and there's one over here. So when I took it apart last night, I made a little sketch just on a piece of paper here. So two side by side and a bigger one over there. So the one that's got this little Allen wrench here still has the screw on it. It's out of this hole here, which would be this one here. And that's the one for the metering valve, okay. Okay, so this little plug goes in here. There's no torque on that. That one just goes down and bottoms out, right like that. And I'll snug that in a second. All right. Now, the one beside it, which is this hole here, is where the vent wire goes. The vent wire goes down in this hole here, like that. Just drops in. And there's another one of those little plugs that goes in. Where is it? There it is right there. It's really tiny. Okay, and that'll go in here. It's tiny. Okay. Okay, and then the last plug is the bigger one. And you can see this plug here goes in on a bit of an angle. See that? It's going in on an angle. All right, and I'm going to snug that down. I didn't touch the leaf spring. I didn't touch the adjustment. I didn't take the screw out. It doesn't look, there's much more to adjust it anyway. Because here are those little pump plungers. And if you remember when we took this pump apart, these were gummed up and stuck. So I've got them cleaned up. Got them dipped in clean diesel fuel. Okay, so the next thing I did was I put the plungers in the pump, and they say to put them in while submerged in diesel fuel. So I had a pretty small container here, but I was able to do it. I put one in first, and then I got it submerged, and I put the other one in behind it. Something about keeping air out of between them, I guess, or I'm not quite sure what it's all about, but They're in there. I had to do it sideways, you know, because if I did them this way, they would fall out. But they're in there now, so I can bring that out. Oh, look at that one's halfway out, but yeah. Good. Okay, these should move freely in here, like that. See that? Okay, just like that. That's one. Same with the other one. And that's the same with the other one. Moves freely in there. Okay. So we got 1 and 2. And these go in here. One like that. And one like that on the other side. Okay. Okay. With those rollers in there like that, moving freely. What you're supposed to do at this point is you're supposed to apply air. Take a measurement here for the maximum stroke on the pump. And because I'm going to just put this together and try it and see if it works, I'm not going to worry about that. This is sort of a do or die. Either this fixes it or I'm going to make another decision on this pump. I haven't adjusted this. I haven't taken this bolt out to change any of the tensions. So I'm just going to leave it like that. We're going to try it the way it is. Now, when we took this apart, the counterclockwise arrow was facing up like this. And if you look on the other side, there's a clockwise ring. So if you had a clockwise pump, you would put this on clockwise like that. But because it's counterclockwise, we put it back the same way it came out, with the arrow pointing counterclockwise, okay? So I'm going to dip that in some diesel. I'm going to put that on here, like that. Okay, that's how we took it apart. Okay, now what happens is when the pressurized fuel from the lift pump goes in the center of this shaft, it comes out behind those two, in between those two little plungers, and it expands the plungers, okay? And then as this rolls around, when these rollers are pushed out against these, the cam ring, when it comes up against one of these spots where it's going to create injection, those plungers get pushed in, pushing the two little plungers inside together. Fuel comes back down the center of the rotor until this turns until it lines up with one of the injection ports and then injects the fuel. So the fuel that feeds this little chamber in there comes from the metering valve through the rotor when one of the ports is lined up to feed it. But the minute it turns past that, that fuel is trapped in there. And the only option it has to go out is when these lobes line up. So the only way that the fuel has to get out of there when those plungers get jammed together with fuel between them is to go down the center of the rotor and out the corresponding hole that is now lined up for that particular cylinder to fire. Okay, so that's on there. Proper orientation. Okay, we got our weight ring, and we've already marked the new mark on it right here. Okay, and this goes on. Get the light over here a little bit. And you see the mark on our shaft right there. So that's where the little divot is. So that goes that way. All right, that's there like that. Now we've got a circ clip to go down here. Okay, so I got the circ clip in here. Okay, that's fixed now. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these governor weights in their respective slots, and they go in like that. That's down. One there. One there. Of course, dipping them all in diesel fuel as we go. Like that. Okay, and the other thing that goes in there is this. So these are the two other parts that go with that. There's a this acts underneath this washer. So when the governor spins and these weights fly out, it lifts this ring, and then in turn lifts this collar that moves the governor linkage in the governor chamber. Okay, so this washer's got to go down under here. So put that down, and we got to set all of these underneath as we go. There's another one there. Oh, there's one. Another one here. Okay, that's under the ring. And the last one, down like that. So there, yeah, you see how that is? So when this spins, and if it goes faster, these weights will spin out. They'll lift that ring. It'll push that collar up. It'll adjust the fuel metering valve through the linkage in the governor chamber to slow down the delivery of fuel. And it works the opposite. So if the engine went under a load and it slowed down, the weights would come in and this would drop, and it would send a corresponding message via the linkages to the metering valve to open and deliver more fuel to the engine. Okay. All right, so that's in there like that. And this collar goes in with that oblong piece, the oval, up, and the circle down. Okay? So we'll dip it in some clean diesel and put that in here. Like that. And there it is. Okay? Okay, this rotor is now fully assembled and it's ready to go inside the pump body. And I've got this thing cleaned out. You know, it's got a few stains left in it and stuff like that, but it's way better than it was. And what I used to get the varnish off of it was carb cleaner. You know, it removes varnish and stuff. I took it outdoors and I sprayed it and I washed it with a toothbrush and then yeah, I did that several times. I got it pretty clean there. Looks good. So what I got to do is, before I put this in here, a couple of things. I got to change the O-ring on this body right here. And then I'm going to put a little lubricant on here, a little light coating of grease. It'll come off in the first few cycles of when the engine runs. And same thing here. I'm just going to lightly lubricate the inside of this housing so it pushes in easily. Okay, I'm just going to change the O-ring on the body of this thing. Okay, so the kit I've got for the O-rings for this pump is 24371. Okay, and there's apparently there's a little bit more, you know, than you're going to need in this one kit for one pump, because I guess they cover several different pumps with one kit. Okay, take that out, lock that down until that goes in that groove right there. There it is. Okay. Okay, so here's everything that comes in this kit, the 24371 kit. The only other thing that comes in the kit is this O-ring I've just put on the body of the pump right there. Okay, so what's in there? These are for the injection lines. That's at the end. It's the cover gasket. And these are your umbrella seals that go on the shaft, the drive shaft. Okay, here's that flex ring. There would be a new one if you were going to use the old weight retainer, but we've, like I say, we've upgraded that to the new style that doesn't require this. We have some new gaskets for the inspection windows, several other little parts, and look at this. The stop is in there for the delivery valve. Now I went and bought one of these. Cost me, I think it was about $15 or $20 to buy this separate, and it's already in the rotor now, but I hadn't taken this kit apart. You know, I wanted to keep it complete until I put the pump together, but it comes with a new one. They recommend you change it, and there's one right there. Okay, so I got the clean housing here. So I put a little grease in here, a clean finger and a clean glove. Put just a little smear of grease in here to help this thing go in. Okay, just like that. On that O-ring. Okay, so I've got everything lined up the way I need to have it. These these threaded holes at the bottom are lined up. I lined up my new marks. I'm not sure if it's that critical right now, but I've lined up the marks on the governor retainer ring with the line on the cam. Okay, and that's in the right orientation. We've prepped this surface, lightly greased it in there, cleaned it all out. Okay, and that's going to go down there just like this. Okay. One last look. And we'll just bring it down slowly, straight down. Just like that. That's almost down far enough. Oh, that's almost it, I think. See where it was before. Yeah, it's almost it, I think. Maybe it's got to go down a little farther. Oh, it has to come down a little bit because that locking bolt isn't far enough down yet. Okay, let's see. Oh. Come down a little farther. Yeah. All right, we'll get it. Okay, so I pushed it in there, and then when I looked at my locking bolt holes, and in here, it had gone actually in a little bit too far, maybe 1/8 of an inch in too far. So, you know, it's kind of really stiff in there. So what I did was I put some of the injection line bolts in, and I just used a big screwdriver between here and the bolt, and I just went around slowly and 2 or 3 turns around, and I got it pulled out enough so that these locking bolts are lined up again. So it's another thing I did. You know, the governor weights rattle around, and you know that's one of the reasons they say when you take one of these pumps out, if you don't want the governor weights to fall out, you should tie the throttle back, right? You often see a new rebuilt pump will have the throttle tied back. And that keeps the governor weights pushed up against the front. I just took 2 of these new shop gloves and put them down in this hole. I just put them down in front of there for now, just to keep that from those governor weights from rattling around and maybe coming out, right? Until I get the linkage in there. Okay, I'm not going to forget to take those out. And, okay. So now on the bottom here, I can put in, you can see those holes, I don't know if you can see them or not, but they're lined up perfectly in here. So, I got this to put in there. I got to put a new O-ring on this. Actually, looks like 2 new O-rings on this one, so I'll get those done. Okay, and that goes right in there. Like that. And that's 7/16. 7/16, 12 point, mind you. Okay, that's in there. Now we're going to put this guy down in there. And we know that when we took it out, you're supposed to use the proper tool. And we got it out with an Allen wrench. We got it out with a 1/4 inch Allen wrench. Okay. So in it goes. And it goes right there in the cam ring. Just like that. Okay, I'll snug it down. Okay, that's good. And see how that moves back and forth. So when that little piston moves back and forth, it adjusts the cam ring, advances or retards the timing of the fuel injection. Pretty cool, eh? Okay, now we're going to put this guy together, these pistons. And what I did was when I took it apart, I took the pump apart, I made a little sketch. Okay, so it shows this orientation. This is the bottom of the pump, the flange is here. So the solid one with the groove is this one here, and it goes on this side. I got to change the O-rings on it yet. And on this side is the other one. It's the other one with the spring. See? A little drawing is very often helpful, you know, because memory fails you. Fails me anyway. Okay, I've got the solid one on this side, Okay, I've changed the O-rings. I've dipped it in clean diesel fuel. I've got this little thing here that contacts that ball. I'm going to put a little smack of grease on there. Put that in there. That'll hold it while I get it in place till it comes up into contact with that little ball inside. Okay, that's good for now. Okay, now the other side, same thing. I've changed the O-rings. I dip it in some clean diesel. Okay. Dip the spring. Okay, like that. Okay. So here's the other side, all clean and lubricated. And I'm just going to put a little dab of grease on there. And sit this other, hit this little other, put the cup on there like that. See? All right. And that one goes in this side. And there it is. All right. Now, I'm gonna make sure those cups are sitting properly. Yeah, that one's looking good. And yeah, that's looking good. Okay, everything looks good down in there. We got this plug. I put a new O-ring on that. That goes in here. I'm going to tighten this, and I'm going to tighten these. Turn that around. Same on this side. There, don't overdo it. It's only aluminum. Okay, so there's an O-ring that goes on these locking bolts. Okay, the kit provides 2 of them. So we'll put that in there. I'm going to come back in a moment and snug that up. I'm going to take out this one that we put in earlier and make sure it gets its O-ring. Okay. Okay, just like that. Okay, now we're ready to take our rags out of there and assemble this governor linkage. Okay, I'm just going to take out those 2 gloves that I put in it to keep the governor weights from moving. A rag would have been better because it wouldn't come out in 100 pieces, but we got it here. Yeah. There it is. Check for remnants. That looks good. Nothing else in there. Okay, so I'm going to put this governor chamber together. First thing I'm going to do is take my metering valve and see how it's got a little spring on it. Make sure you get that little spring on there. Dip it in some clean diesel fuel. Okay, so the metering valve is in there. Turns freely. Okay. I put it in with the little pin facing that way and the little upright arm on this side. Okay, then the governor mechanism I didn't take apart. I just left that spring in there. And it was all looking good. So get that dipped in clean diesel fuel. We're just going to sit that down in here like that. And that hole right here goes down over that pin on the metering valve linkage. Okay, like that. Let's see here. Just like that. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to put this pivot rod in for that mechanism, okay? Take the nut off here. It's got a 90-degree corner on it. That 90-degree corner wants to go towards the front of this pump, right like that. Okay, and then the back side's got a little knife edge on it. You see that? One side's got a 90-degree, the other's got a knife edge. The knife edge wants to come this way. Okay, so I'm just going to put that through here. It has to slide through that mechanism, like so. Okay, so the little shaft goes through there like that. All right. And then we'll just put the nut on the other side. Put the nut over here, like that. All right. All right, we're going to tighten those up in a second. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the adjustment bolt in there with the spring on it. Okay, so how this little rod goes together, there's the rod itself, and there's a brand new aluminum gasket that comes in the kit that goes on there. And there's a little piece like this that goes on there. And then there's a sleeve that goes on there like that. And then the spring itself, okay? And how that goes, it all goes together like this. You got to put this on the end of that little lever there and hold it down here, and then bring, while you hold that together, you bring this in from the end like that. Push the metering valve down, and we put that through the hole like that. Okay. And we thread this into place, like so. Okay. I'll check for operation, looks good. Okay, so I got the throttle linkage, it goes in on this side. It's got a new O-ring and it's got a new Teflon washer that rubs up against the housing here. Comes in on this side, and there's a spacer immediately. You see how there's a keyway cut in there, and there's a groove this way. Well, that groove is for the stop cam. That'll go in a second. But the first thing that goes in is this. It's got a key on it, and there's a keyway there, right? So that lines up together. Okay, so the stop lever goes on the other side. Okay, you see how it's got a little groove in it there? All right, that goes in like this with the screws facing up. And it goes over that. I'm going to push both these shafts together. That little groove right there is going to accommodate this clip. It's right down here like this. And that clips down over, okay, like that. That acts to hold both these shafts together. It also, that little tang on it, contacts this part of the governor linkage. When you pull your cable, your stop cable, see how that works? You pull your stop cable back, and it turns the metering valve to a zero fuel position. Okay, that's running position, that's stop. You see the metering valve turning down there. So now what I'm going to do with this assembled is I'm going to pull this shaft back, and I'm going to tie it back with a zip tie to one of these bolts here, and that'll keep the governor weights in place. Okay, now I've tied this back. Now it's safe to turn the pump the other way, and the governor weights aren't going to fall out of their cage. I can put the pump together. Okay, now I'm going to put the cam ring in, and counterclockwise is up. Okay, so that goes in this way, and the pin on this particular one, you can look in the cover, the pin goes that way, like that. So I'll put the orientation for the pin over there, okay? And I've got to put the vanes in for the pump. And these little vanes are, there's a spring in between them. There's one here. I'm going to clean it up a bit better before I put it in, but so here's how they go together like that, with the spring in between. So I'm just going to wipe these off, dip them in clean diesel, and put them in there. One goes like that, and the other one goes down from the top. All right, there's the first set put together with the spring in between them. Okay, I'm just going to push that down. And the other set goes like that, upside down. So one is kind of U-shaped up, and the other is U-shaped down, like that, with the spring in between, as you can see. Okay, down those go. All right. Okay, we got a new O-ring in there. Dipped it in clean diesel. All right. Okay, the next is the cover. Don't forget to put this little plate in the cover. This with the groove. Sometimes there's little holes, you know, little individual holes drilled here. This one's got gaps just like that. Make sure that's in the insert in the cover, just like this one is. Okay. Everything's clean. Dip that in clean diesel fuel, and you see the pins on the left-hand side here, so it's going to come around to there. Okay. Like that, right there. Okay, and then we just put our 4 bolts in that cover. By the way, if you're looking for these bolts, you know, they're 1032. You probably want something that's good and strong, but that's what the thread is. It's nothing special, it's just a 1032 bolt, okay? And so what I've got here is I've got another cover off of another pump. This one has a solenoid in it, okay? And it's in better shape than the one I had, so I'm going to put this one on there. And I have the option now of both having the cable for stopping the engine, but also I'll have it wired to the run position of the key switch. So, you know, it'll energize and move away when it's powered. And then, you know, the minute it goes to no power, it goes like that. And this arm moves this little cam down here and pushes the metering valve to a 0 fuel position. Okay, so I've got a new gasket in this cover. And that looks pretty clean in there. We'll put the cover on. Just like that. And this bolt here, see, it's got a ground strap going to it. So you put your positive from your ignition switch here. So that's a run position on the key switch, goes to here, and that just grounds it to the body. So this solenoid will be energized, allowing fuel to flow anytime that the key's in either the run position or the start position. So I got the pump all together. I went over it and I tightened these bolts here on the end of that little shaft for the governor linkage. I tightened down these locking bolts. There's the bolts for the injectors lines, and there's 2 new gaskets for each one. There's 4 bolts. 1 bolt's in here right now holding this back. I've got the umbrella seals I got to go put on the shaft. And they go back to back on the shaft like that in a groove. Each in their own little groove that way. And these are the studs that bolt the injection pump to the tractor. There's my fuel filter assembly. There's the bolts that hold that onto the tractor, and there's a little line clamp for the injector lines. Okay, so tune in real soon. We're going to install this injection pump on the tractor and see if it works. Thanks for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you again here soon on Everyday Projects. Bye for now.